Alright, so welcome to my Dead Space Q&A. This was posted over on Patreon. If you'd like to be part of those future Q&As, I have one more for the spooky season. Maybe two, depending on, but definitely there's going to be one more spooky-themed Q&A coming soon. So stay tuned for that. But like I said, if you would like to be part of those, just hit the link below in the description and head on over to my Patreon. As well as if you want to check out my review of Terrifier 3, just hit the link below in the description and hit the first tier when you go to Patreon. But yeah, so like I said, this is my Q&A for Dead Space. One of my favorite horror games. Maybe not franchise, but definitely the first game is something. So I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions for this Q&A, and let's get started. The first set of questions come from Christopher Rosa, who asks, if you were able to, were you able to watch the animated movies of this franchise, and if so, what did you think about them? I used to, I actually owned both Dead Space, Downfall, and Aftermath. I still own Downfall. I think it's, of that weird era where we were getting, like, animated movie prequels to stuff. Remember that era? It came and it came and went real fast. But I thought Dead Space Downfall, which was the prequel to the video game, is pretty solid. I think it's a solid adult animated film. And it's a great intro. If you watch that movie and then you play the video game, solid. I actually watched the movie before I played the video game, and I still think it holds up. Aftermath is ass. Aftermath is straight up just 100% dog shit. It tried to be interesting, but it was trying to do multiple animations, but it was boring, it was drawn out. I really didn't like it. I really just fucking hated the whole goddamn thing. Yeah. So one was good, one was awful. So there you go. Second question. How would it go if you wrote an animated movie or fan fiction for this franchise? I'd probably say, how I would probably do a Dead Space animated film is probably maybe... I'd probably say, one of the colonies gets infected and probably be, a side story. That's the best I got right out the gate is, maybe make it a side story. That's the best I could do, is not really have Isaac, maybe mention him here and there, but that would be the main case, is do that. Also, check out my Killer Clowns from Outer Space Tumblr. Makes you feel like a real white bitch, but horror. Anyway. So yeah, thank you for that question. Your third question is, if you made 3 different crossovers of Marvel, DC, and Mass Effect, how would those crossovers go, and how would the main characters be? Who would be the main characters in those crossovers? Ah, God. For DC, I'd probably make it maybe a Superman story, like a Superman discovers the artifact or something. I don't know. Marvel, probably X-Men, maybe involve the Brood, and Mass Effect. I think that would be pretty solid. Maybe have it that the Mass Effect timeline is just farther future, and we've moved past that religion of the marker, and now they've rediscovered the marker, and now they're dealing with that shit again. I think that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, that's the best I got right off the top of my head. But thank you for those questions, Rosa. Moving on now to Hunter Johnson, who asks, what would happen if we got a Dead Space game developed by both Motive Studios and Supermassive Games in a collaboration between the two developers? Buggy, and it would be buggy but pretty to look at. That's all I'm going to say about that matter. Second question, what would Isaac Clarke think of Master Chief? Hey, you're pretty good at killing monsters. I'm good at it too. I don't really think there'd be much to say between the two of them, if I'm being honest. There really wouldn't be much in terms of, talking between the two of them. Third question. What would happen if the Necromorphs had gem abilities? You mean, if they assimilated gems? Is that what I'm guessing? The gems from Steven Universe? That's what we're kind of going with here? I would probably say, something along the lines of, probably wouldn't be good, and they kind of already have, like, abilities that are almost gem-like in a lot of cases, so I really don't see, like, the big thing here. I really don't see, like, the big thing. But anyway, thank you for those questions, Hunter. Moving on now to Alistair Bondman, who asks, rumor has it that before Dead Space 3 killed the franchise, the future installments would have followed Ellie and humanity using the Planet Cracker tech like it was used on the Ishimura to fight the Baratheon moons, implying that the DLC end of Dead Space 3 where Isaac and what's-his-face Vision of Earth getting eaten was another mental illusion. Would you have liked that change of protagonist and end of Dead Space and I'm not trapped in here with you instead of humanity doing I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me? I would have liked that. I really do think, like, they really shit the bed, because I really feel like Dead Space sequels really didn't have a good idea of what to do next. That was my biggest problem with all of them, and I'll probably go further, because I feel like someone asked me a question similar, but I really do feel like the sequels were just making it up as they go along, as opposed to most game franchise where they do have an inkling of where the story's gonna go. So at least that's what I'm kind of thinking. That's what it feels like to me. Second question. If you got a chance to create your own necromorph, at least 4 types, 1 human-sized, 1 amalgam mini-boss like a juggernaut, and 1 flyer, and 1 big boss, what would you call these necros, and how would the fights be like? I wouldn't say fights, but I would say, like, probably have one called the Dreadnought and have it be like this 2-headed, like, Leviathan monster. Another one would be a flyer and call it the Dragonfly, just this kind of twisted creature with the stinger on the end that sprays acid. Human-shaped, I'd probably call it a Reeker. Have it like it just has this horrific, kind of like acidic, like it's decomposing constantly. I don't know. That's just something like that. Third question. It's heavily implied that the Breatharian moons, via the makers they seeded on countless worlds' influence, they developed much of, if not sapient life, through the galaxy, and later harvesting reproduction. Would you be open to a future Dead Space game if it did that kind of route, or comic or something? I'd be kind of down for that. The moons kind of again, the story arcs do kind of go all over the place, but it really did feel like they were kind of aping off Prometheus, right? Like, it really just kind of felt like someone saw Prometheus and went, ooh, we can do that. But yeah, I'd be down. Thank you for those questions, Alistair. Moving on now to Cyborg 19.99, whose first question is, what anime, video game, cartoon movies would you cross over with Dead Space? Christ. Alright, I guess anime, I'd probably go with, if I'm going with an anime, probably I'm trying, like, I had a movie and I had an anime and I lost it. But I'd probably say something along the lines of, I don't know, like some cosmic anime, like from the 80s. What was it? Like Lilycat? Lilycat would be cool. Video game? Probably Mass Effect. Cartoon? Cartoon? I don't know. Because nothing really can, like, cartoon-wise right now can be part of, like, Dead Space. So I got nothing on that. Movie? Either Event Horizon or Event Horizon or Alien. There you go. Second question. How do you think the Dead Space franchise would... How do you think the Dead Space franchise would end? Oh, it's already dead. It's already dead and gone, unless we're talking remakes, but I have heard nothing about the Dead Space 2 remake. Watch, tomorrow or sometime today, as of this recording, we're going to get, like, an announcement for the Dead Space 2 remake, right? That's just how it fucking works. All right, moving on now to David. But thank you for those questions, Cyborg. Moving now to David Deister, who asks, "What is your personal ranking of the Dead Space games?" From worst to best, 3, 2, 1. It's too easy. It's too easy to name because again, it just went off the rails. But yeah, the third one's goated. Second question: how would a Jedi work in the Dead Space universe? Probably the Force could be like maybe something toxic to. The Force, like maybe the Force can like is like toxic to whatever is in the energy of the maker, of the marker, excuse me, and probably have a it'd probably be something like that, like have it be maybe like the Force is just toxic to them. I lost my train of thought. Third question: who would be the perfect publisher for a Dead Space comic series, excluding Marvel and DC? I'd say IDW. IDW recently announced during New York Comic Con that they're going to be doing a horror line. Granted, a lot of it is Paramount IP titles like Event Horizon and Sleepy Hollow and Quiet Place and Smile. But Dead Space would work perfectly over at IDW. I'm not saying they get a crossover automatically, but I do think that they could definitely... I think IDW would be perfect for them. Another, I would say, is... I'd say Boom Studios. I know that's kind of odd, but they've done a few good horror comics here and there. So Boom would be good, and Dark Horse. I know that's kind of a generic answer, but I think IDW, Boom, and Dark Horse. I know that's a generic answer, but those really work with IPs very well. So thank you for those questions, David. Moving on now to Bill, who asks, with the success of the Dead Space remakes, do you think we'll ever get another Dead Space game? I have not, like I said earlier, I have heard neither high or low of anything from the Dead Space from the Dead Space remakes. I've seen the Dead Space remake, I've played it, it's pretty solid. It is weird to see that Isaac is now talking, but at the same time, I'm like, it's pretty cool, but I've heard nothing about a Dead Space 2 remake. Again, watch, I will probably eat my own words later today in that regard. But yeah. But it wouldn't hurt, maybe fix what Dead Space 2 was. Second question, aside from the Necromorphs, who was the most evil character in the series? Probably just the entire cast. I'll tell you what was really evil. The fucking game writers who couldn't figure out what the fuck the story was and just make it up as they went along. That's what I feel like is the most evil, right? Third question. What necromorph scared you the most? In terms of scariest necromorph, I would say the scariest necromorph for me was the wing. It looked like a mosquito, like moth creature. It flew. I can't remember the name. It like impaled your brain and it turned you into a necromorph. Also the babies. The babies were also another one that really was like, ugh. Oh my god, that's awful. Those two were the worst. Your basic necromorph was like, but those two creatures in particular were the ones that really made me go, ugh. I don't like that at all. Thank you for those questions, Bill. Moving on now to Tom Hibbert, who asks, did you think it was a good change in the remake to change Isaac from being a silent protagonist to being one who had a personality and spoke in the first Dead Space remake? I ask because I always believe silent protagonists don't work if they have a backstory we don't know the field. I agree. It was weird to hear Isaac talk. Don't get me wrong. It was pretty weird to hear Isaac talk. But at the same time, I really do feel like having Isaac speak gave more. Because I'm like, dude, they're so... Like, that's the thing with silent protagonists, where I'm like, dude, we're doing all this life-changing stuff, how about we have some conversation here? That was one of my things with... As much as I love BioShock, the first silent protagonist, while it does make sense when you... Story-wise, it also is kind of annoying at the same time. Yeah, that's, I get it. But yeah, that's one of the things I liked about the remake. Second question. What would Isaac Clarke and Ellen Ripley from Alien franchise think of each other, considering both have fought alien species of similar names, both had to deal with the fact that their loved ones are dead. I think the two would make an awesome team up. I think the two would make an awesome pair of allies. I think also they would be pretty solid in terms of. I think they would both be pretty solid in terms of fighting together, and I think they would really come together in terms of getting fucked. Sorry about that. Anyway, like I was saying, the big thing, like I said, is that I think they would kind of also I lost my wife, I lost basically my home, all my friends are dead, and the people I did trust turned on me, things would be crazy. And I think Ripley would be like, I feel that. So yeah, I do think they'd get along. So thank you for that question, Tom. And your final question is, if you had to make a Dead Space house for Halloween Horror Nights, how would you do it? Ooh, I've talked about wanting Dead Space at Halloween Horror Nights. I have talked about that multiple times of wanting Dead Space at Halloween Horror Nights. So, and I think it can work. Like I said, I was at my first Halloween Horror Nights not too long ago, and what I have seen is that they always, yes, I know there's been a lot of talk of, does Halloween Horror Night need IP? I'm gonna go into this quick tangent. Does Halloween Horror Night need IP? I personally think they still need intellectual properties to bring, diehard fans and also get people interested in the franchises in of themselves. But for the most part, I do think that that they still need it. I think they still work. It still works well that having IP there, and they get to be very creative with said IP. But all in all, I get to have I think it definitely gets to play a major role. I think it gets to play a major role, and I do genuinely think that it's necessary, and I would love to see more IP there. I know a lot of people complained, but hey, Insidious was known as the best house this year, and guess what? That's fucking IP. And they're not afraid of doing video games, as we saw with The Last of Us the last year. The Last of Us was based more on the video game than it was the TV show. So I do think that doing more, that could be a good dry run. And it's not like they haven't done video game Halloween Horror Nights stuff to begin with either. We have seen multiple times over that they are more than willing to basically, they are more than willing to do video games, like we saw that years ago with Resident Evil and Silent Hill. So Dead Space, I've always said Dead Space would be cool. I think the one that would work more is BioShock. If they're going to do another video game, would be if someone put a gun to my head and said, "Hey, we're going to do a Halloween Horror Nights video game IP, but you can only pick Dead Space or BioShock," my pick would be BioShock every time. But yeah, let's talk about getting back to how I would do a Dead Space haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights. I think the one thing I'd really like to do is showcase, the entrance would be the side of the Ishimura. It would be you're boarding the Ishimura. It would definitely take a lot of inspiration from the first game. That would be the big thing, is that we're focusing a lot on, because that's the one everyone knows, is the first game. So I think the big thing I would do is really have that first game feel of claustrophobia, that kind of feeling that every door, I would even have sliding door scares, where a door would slide open and a necromorph just pops out at you. Now, would they be scare actors or puppets? I think I would definitely, and we have seen with the Quiet Place haunted house, that the Quiet Place haunted house was definitely a one that had animatronics and puppets utilized even more. So I do think they would have animatronic necromorphs. I think they would have, as well as scare actors, whether that be crew or not. That leaves up to anything to be desired. But anyway, yeah. I think it can work. I really do think it can work. I think I would also have a lot of that, again, going back to first game feel, have necromorph animatronics. I would even have scares from above. I would love to have scares, scare actors, have things reach down at people. I would also love to have, and they did this once with an Alien vs Predator haunted house years ago, where what they did, it was so cool. What they did was have you crawl to get out of the maze. They had you crawl in a vent, like squat down and crawl in a vent and get scared by a xenomorph puppet. So I'd love to bring that feel back, where the places you would have to go is like squat down and crawl in a vent and get scared, like have just at least one scare of a necromorph. Something like that I think could really work. But those are just my thoughts. Anyway, so there you go, guys. That is my, there's my Q&A. There's my Dead Space Q&A. I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions, and like I said, if you'd like to be part of the next one, just hit the link below in the description box and hit the first tier to my Patreon, and get ready for the next Q&A. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.